Hello, 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 hello. Welcome. I just sent you a voice message about what happened to me last night um, with the Indian food. It's actually happened to me once before. Never with this restaurant though, which is so sad because there's only two Indian restaurants in Cluj where I live, and the other one, when a restaurant gives you food poisoning, it's kind of game over for that restaurant. Um, and the other one did. And maybe I can give them a new chance. Maybe they have new chefs. But this other one I've ordered like so many times, never had any problems. Last night it tasted so good, and then just like I don't know, my stomach just like I just couldn't. I just was like sick. I was like so like I mean, a good thing it wasn't like horrible, horrible. Like it was just like it was bad. I just like had to like go to sleep basically. So here I am. Let's get into it. So okay, where did the Solar Fire app go? Disappeared, huh? Okay, 1 second. I need to open this up. I have so many windows open. Okay, here we go. Let's move this over here. Perfect. And let's also move this over here. Okay. So we got Solar Fire. We got you pulled up. Let's go ahead and present, share screen. So, sorry, my voice is a little scratchy. Very interesting here. First thing I obviously look at is the relationship between sun and moon. It's very, very important, clearly. When you have moon in Capricorn in the 9th house and sun in Gemini in the 2nd, there's a big difference between those two energies. They are a quincunx. You have a quincunx between sun and moon, which is when they're 5 signs or 150 degrees away. In your case, it's like, it's actually like, yeah, like a quincunx have pretty tight auras, meaning that like for them to be very effective, it has to really be like yours, like 14 degrees and 13 degrees. And basically it sort of creates an energy. I always think of quincunx as like it's not as dynamic as a square, but it can be in a situation like this when it's so tight, when the orbit's so tight, and where there's just such it kind of has a similar theme where there's just such a difference between the energies of your Gemini sun and your Cat moon. 1 second, I need more AC. That it forces you to have to figure out like how am I gonna live with this? Like how it creates, in psychology we talk about parts work, right? It creates these multiple parts, and it can be difficult to manage, right? So when we relate it to life at home with growing up with parents and whatnot, it can indicate that there's like a difference between the father and the mother. Like if you had to write down their life purpose, I guess you could say, like write down in one paragraph what they taught you or what you unconsciously like learned from them, that exercise. I mean, I did it in my book, but I don't know if that many people do it. It's pretty interesting if you really try to break it down to like a few minutes of writing, 10, 15. But essentially, the Gemini sun, in the 2nd house, is going to be a lot more out there, right? It's going to be a lot more out there. It's going to be a lot more social. It's going to be a lot more experimental, and it's going to be a lot more I guess the word is it's always looking for something new. It's very curious, right? So Geminis are very creative. Let me pull up the aspect grid. Hold on. Yeah, so and you've got the square with Uranus, so they're in square with Pluto. So and are they okay? Yeah, so they're it's an exact square. So that's massively important, and that would mean that you have a T square. Wow, so you have a T square. This is crazy. Is that true? No, it's not true. I'm wrong. T square would have to be if you had an opposition. It's some aspect pattern that I do not know the name of because it basically means that this planet, the sun, is squaring these two planets, these two outer planets, which is super. Each of them is super important. The fact that they're conjunct and both squaring your sun, and then these two are trining your moon. But basically, the point is that this fifth house is super important, and with the sun, squaring Pluto, squaring Uranus. Start with Uranus, right? So sun in Gemini already, in square to Uranus can create a very very rebellious person, right? So there can be a touch of like Aquarian energy, one could say, a touch of like, I'm gonna do me no matter what. And sometimes people that have this square can almost piss off like the more conservative, like do it by the book types of people. What's really interesting is that like there's at the same time as it squares your sun, right? So maybe there's like this epic parts, family systems in psychology, right? Parts work, we break down our inner psychology to different parts. And there might be like one part that's linked to like the father, one part that's linked to the mother. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? We can talk about in the follow-up. Where one of them is more okay with that energy, and the other one is less okay. That's what this would indicate, because the Uranus trine moon, right? So the lunar part of you. I'm trying to make this all make sense. And it will trust me by the end. It's complex stuff. But let me show my face again. It's easier when people see me talk. Okay, so the moon in Capricorn is actually very conservative, right? So it's interesting to me that on one end there's the sun, right? The core essence of who you are. The moon, which is the emotional, the feminine self, the subjective inner environment where we live within ourselves. That has a more positive flow relationship to that Uranus. And it can kind of create an energy where this Uranus and Pluto archetypes within you, which Uranus is like the great liberator, right? Pluto is the great destroyer. It's like it's the energy that moves us towards our own personal darkness, but also towards our own personal transformations. It makes me think that like one parent was at odds with this, and maybe it was the father, while maybe one parent was like more for it, which is super interesting, right? Because but then I see this theme even more but then the moon's in Capricorn, right? So the moon, and it doesn't have any difficult aspects. The moon opposite Jupiter is not difficult, right? So like usually this is what's trippy about your chart. I'm happy. I kind of feel good doing this first thing in the morning. Maybe I'll do this more often. Literally the first thing I've done today, besides shower and feed my cats and do laundry. I guess it's a few things. But like, it makes me think that like that moon, right? So moon in Capricorn is usually pretty difficult, but I've seen it like it's very difficult. You've seen my list on my Instagram of like most difficult, least difficult moon signs identified with Venus signs. Basically, in women, it's less difficult. I've seen enough charts. I've met and I have enough friends. This, that, and the fourth. Like I know enough people. I've had enough clients. My brother, for example, love him, but he has this, and it's very difficult placement for him. I've seen enough men with Capricorn moon, and then like my good friend Agnia, she has this Capricorn moon also, and she is super emotionally balanced, right? So, and I've seen how like in women, sometimes the Capricorn moon, especially when you have Jupiter opposing it in Cancer, sometimes it can act almost more like positively, because what happens to Capricorn moon, and it's very well aspected in your chart, right? Because it's aspected, it's trined from every direction, meaning that it has positive energies coming from every direction, from the ascendant in Taurus, right? Your ascendant trines your moon. So your Venus also trines your moons, and then your Pluto and your Uranus also trine your moon. So you have this massive grand trine that is basically going towards your moon, and it makes me think that you probably like, because a lot of times the Capricorn moon, it's like it's difficult because there can be lots of stuck emotional patterns, and here's a cat. It can just make it so the person can have a lot of trouble with emotional vulnerability. So you can imagine how in a modern man's chart, this could be very difficult, right? But if it's in a woman's chart, that there's not toxic femininity, it's toxic masculinity. Women are able to, when they have stuck emotions, they're able to really talk to their girlfriends or admit that they need help, if it's therapy or whatever it is. They're like, whatever kind of emotional or psychological healing they need, they're able to go towards it, so they don't just keep that energy stuck within. So Esme, come on, stay on my lap. So I would think that you probably have what I would refer to as like a very like fortunate Cap moon. And what the most difficult aspect is the one with the sun. So we'll get more to that, but I want to kind of circle around to give the big picture, because it's a complex chart. But like the moon is in Capricorn, it's getting all this help. The sun is getting no help, right? But basically, like so the moon in Capricorn, we'll start here, then we'll go back to the sun and kind of compare and contrast. The moon in Capricorn here, like it suggests typically that there's an emotional need to have some kind of structure in life, right? It gives one emotion, at its best, it can give one a level of emotional grounding and emotional balance. But there can sometimes be this real fortitude, this real like inability to express vulnerability and this, that, and the fourth, right? Which can be very difficult. And yeah, so I would be very curious to kind of understand how you have experienced like different ways you've been explained, or you've seen Capricorn moon explained, because it is a tricky one. Another thing about Capricorn moon, they like to work. They like to be like Capricorn moons. What I've realized is like they're happiest when they not necessarily have a job, but like when they're doing something that they feel is really like helping the world, like they really like within their souls, like not on some surface level, some surface level, like on like within themselves, they really feel like it's helping humanity. So that's one thing. But another thing with Capricorn moon, and it is Capricorn moon that's trining all these planets, ascendant Venus, and then Pluto and Uranus. With the Pluto and Uranus, you're gonna get lots of downloads, right? Especially Uranus. Uranus will give you downloads, and Pluto will give you this real staying power and this real like emotional endurance. So that one is interesting for sure. And then with Venus on the other side, in the first house, obviously Venus in the first house in the whole house system, right? That indicates, it's 10 degrees from your ascendant. That beauty would play a large role in Taurus, right? In your personality, and it would create someone that has no trouble manifesting and attracting who likes, you know, to kind of indulge through the senses, not necessarily in a bad way. I don't see any any difficult aspects to that, like that would indicate that. But you know, all these energies, like Venus trining the moon, it just makes the emotional expression and the ability to be vulnerable and to truly express the emotions. It makes it easier than it otherwise would be, right? And then you throw the ascendant in there, and the ascendant. I'll show this again. I'll show you actually in a sec. I want to check one thing before. But the ascendant, what that does in that position is that basically, you know, the moon is hidden, right? The moon is like, it's like, you know, the whole iceberg diagram. It's like what isn't seen. And oh yeah, I remember now. I just was like, I had this intuition. I was like, check your notes, because there's something you told me that. Okay, I need to check because I know you said something. Like, I think, was it you who was saying that like you wanted like a more intense reading? I had this intuition, like, right. Okay, so area of focus would be my art journey / career. Oh, interesting. Where to from here after some pretty amazing successes, opportunities? I'm feeling a little lost lately, bored for the first time in my life, directionless. Okay, and am I still staying with art or completely changing directions? You're from New Zealand. Okay, is there anything else you said? Okay, gotcha. Okay, so that's all. Okay, you weren't the one. There's someone else who's like, I need, like, you talk about the vertex and all these really intense things, leave out all the other stuff, and you just texted me back. Oh no, I'm good. Okay. Oh no. Oh no, I am mid reading. I am fine. Okay, so let's keep that message up. Not that I'll forget it, but let's really try to kind of answer that while it's fresh in the mind. In 1 second, I want to take a photo for my Instagram to just prove that I'm doing a reading this early, because it's like, this is usually when I'm like asleep. Hold on. Don't worry, I'm not going to add this to the time. Okay, sorry. Okay, so let's get back to this. I just am replying to you. Okay. So yeah, basically that's it's very interesting. So when you mention you're an artist, I'm like, okay, well, Venus in the first house in Taurus makes an artist, right? And to add to that, moon in Capricorn, I imagine that a lot that it probably goes very much as what I'm saying, right? Moon in Capricorns, they really need to feel like what they're doing has, especially in the ninth house, which is the house of Sagittarius. Let's go back to your messages. Okay. It needs to feel like what it's doing is really, really like worthy. It needs to feel like it's gaining ground, and I guess you could call it like your art helps you see the bigger picture of reality. So that if that got cut off, and that might be more of the territory of like a current astrology reading to like really like look at the transits and any good astrologer will tell you like we can't fortune tell, we can like with a birth chart, what I'm looking at is just the probabilities from birth, right? That would be the same at any point, but you can still understand tendencies. So with all this, cat moons, they definitely have staying power, but when they feel like what they're doing isn't like really nourishing them on that highest self, on that level of like I always think of it like honor. Like I always think of Martin Luther King because he's a very Capricorn guy, and like just like that's the high energy of Capricorn, right? But then Venus and Taurus is all about the painter. It's all about the person in the first house. It makes a very strong chance that the person's personality is mixed with their art, especially since your North Node's there too. And also you have a lot of, so this kind of doubles back what I was saying before about like how your Uranus, the Uranus trine the moon can be super powerful, right? Especially when it's like so close, because it can really send you that otherworldly kind of energy. And even though the moon is in Capricorn, it's like it takes on an Aquarian, and then like with Pluto, like Scorpio type vibe to it, like secondary vibe, right? So there's lots of like your emotional state takes like a lot of like, it's very multidimensional, one could say. And then there's the opposition with Jupiter. So yeah, feeling secure within yourself would be more about making sure that whatever you're doing on a day-to-day basis has some structure, that you're working hard, that where you're going is somewhere that is different. Excuse me, not different. It's somewhere that is that makes you feel good, right? And Capricorn moons, what's so good about them is that they, like, unlike many other moon signs, like the Gemini moon, for example, Cap moon, and this is what's cool about your chart, even though these sun and the moons, they don't really typically get along because one's so out there, one's so in there. But like the Gemini is very initiatory, right? So it's very dynamic, especially since you have 3 planets there. And the Cat moon gives you real staying power. So imagine what the combination of those two could be, even if it's a quincunx. It's like like the Gemini part could kind of like make you very this is actually maybe playing out in that message you sent me, right? And maybe I have to put her down because I have to concentrate. Is that the Gemini part of you, right? Okay, here I'm seeing this a little more clearly now. So the Capricorn moon part, it has that staying power. Once you start something and you're interested in it, you can just do it for years and years and years, right? Consistency. But the Gemini part, especially with Mercury and Mars there in second house, it's always going to be thinking about like what if, and it does have those difficult squares too, right? So it's like it would always be thinking like what if, and the square with Uranus and your sun might be thinking it creates like an energy where it's like I want all the new. I want all the shiny. You know, I want all the whatever is new and shiny. I want it, right? And it can be difficult, right? Because on one side, the emotional, like the emotional, the Capricorn moon can be satisfied, but then the other part, the Gemini part, right? And we definitely have to get into this. Like when I do my astrological counseling, this is like a prime example of like parts that I would dive into and try to figure out how they play out in the person's life. But yeah, the Gemini part would be like more like, okay, this is a better example. Let's say instead of you being a Gemini, your sun was like in Taurus, right? And it was like right there with your sun in or something. I don't know. I don't think you wouldn't be having these kinds of thoughts because you'd have double Earth or triple Earth, I guess, and it wouldn't be square Uranus, your sun. So, you know, you'd have the fulfillment emotionally without the sort of doubts of like, you know, is this for me or is this not for me, right? Well, Gemini, super curious sign. It can sometimes have some of that grass is green on the other side energy to it, and that can be difficult. And that's, I think, what's likely to be playing out. And you know, having Mars there too, and Mercury, which, you know, they're at 5, 14, 25. You know, all of these come together, and it just adds more Gemini energy than there's Capricorn energy, even with all the aspects, right? And Mars and Gemini people are very it's like they're very good with their words. I was talking to one yesterday. They're able to like use their words, their way of speaking, their way of communicating as their weapons when they need to. But the way they get through life, you know, what keeps them going is this push forward, this push for the new, the push for this curiosity, right? This like it's very social butterfly energy. So this is the split in your chart, right? It's between this very introverted, maybe is introverted the right word though? I think Cap moons tend to be introverted, but let's say it's more, it can also be very serious, very stern, sometimes very cold. There can be issues with depression with Capricorn moon. I need to say that too, because it's ruled by Saturn. So if the emotional pattern, if like the stuck emotional patterns don't get crystallized, there can definitely be some trouble. But yeah, if that's worked through, it can feel more like Cancer. It's opposite sign, which is like fulfilled emotionally. And so that's where I think the big split is between that side, which we'll have to define when we compare it with your lived experience, which encompasses the Capricorn moon part of your chart, the ascendant / Venus in Taurus, and then also the fact that those outer planets are trining it too, right? And they're exact trining. There's an exact trine with the Pluto and the wow. So Pluto and Uranus in your chart, I mean, oh geez, are making like really massive aspects. They're aspecting your sun, moon, and ascendant. So that to me, like when I see that, I think instantly like, damn, okay, this person, like there's something going on here with these two outer planets, and they're in the 5th house of creativity, which makes perfect sense that you're a creator, right? And they're in the sign of Virgo, which, you know, as you know, I don't look so much at outer planet signs as much as I do houses, but in this context, I would definitely look at it, because Virgo can be very perfectionist. It can be very much about it's very similar to Capricorn in that respect of like wanting to be worthy, wanting to be doing something, not it doesn't want to just sit around. It wants purpose in its life. It wants to, you know, it wants to be of value, right? It wants to be doing things for like, not just for the sake of doing them. And yeah, so the Gemini comes in, right? And it's kind of very solo. I mean, like, you look at the rest of your chart, you know, besides them, I mean, obviously the other Gemini planets, I mean, like, I don't really see anything else in air. I don't see anything in fire, right? And there's not really anything in water either. So it's like, I have to speak about that too. I mean, you have Jupiter in water, but there's a real domination of earth and air. So I think that what happens is that the earth has, you know, 3 different signs. I mean, you could say that the Virgo isn't really represented, but, you know, the fact that it's in that aspect pattern, it makes it come out more. And the Gemini is by itself. So the Gemini versus the Capricorn, it's like the new versus what's known. And that's always that challenge, that thing you have to balance, is like, how do I keep my emotional fulfillment when this other part of me is always seeking something new, is always seeking change. And then also we have to speak about, you know, the fact that Sun is not only square Uranus, it's square Pluto. These are like the 2 most dynamic aspects in your whole chart, right? Sun, you know, Sun square Uranus and Sun square Pluto. So, you know, with Uranus, as I said before, it makes one really want to do things their own way. So it makes a very complex person, very independent. Charge this. But there can definitely be relationship issues too, which we'll get into. Because there's this big need to express. God, every cat's coming. So basically, like, it can make one come off as very rebellious, very abrupt. There's a huge need to be rebellious. So it's like, or to kind of like have freedom and have space. So in relationships, when things get clingy, when things get like too close, if you feel like you're being controlled in any way, even though the Capricorn moon does like to have structure, it does like to have a level of that stability, and also that, you know, Venus and Taurus does as well. This part of your chart will want to be able to also have the space, right? So yeah, it can definitely, it can create a very unique sense of humor as well. And it can create very genius energy. But yeah, it's like, because it makes someone very, very abrupt, there can be relationship difficulties, right? Like, people, like, even if you don't consciously, what's happening? Oh my God. So yeah, even if you're not like doing it consciously, you may make others feel like you're challenging them or provoking them, and it can make you come under lots of pressure. So that can happen with that. Now with the Pluto, you know, that is all about shadow. And it kind of creates like it can create, like, especially when young, like lots of ego conflicts. There can be a real unsettling effect on personal relationships because of like the intense nature one has. And so usually people, like, this is all about like letting go. When you're able to let go and to surrender, it gets a lot easier. But when not, it can create someone that feels like they need to control situations and people. And basically, like, to have better results with relationships, there's like a need for a major transformation, behavior transformation. And it kind of makes it so like you get pushed into your shadow, and you get pushed into a more relaxed attitude through your kind of crises experiences. You could call them like the journeys, the underworld, those types of experiences, the darker sides of life. Also, it makes one very, very fascinated by the the dark, the occult, esoteric, these very taboo areas of life, the occult, right? Stuff like that. And it all has to do with a rebirth coming from you sacrificing your need to control, basically. I'm sure that you probably went through that earlier in life. And being in the 5th house, creativity can play a central role in that. And in no way does success have to be sacrificed, right? Like this is one of these aspects where you can really channel that intensity, and like it's also very like this square is tons of determination that comes with it. You can channel that into your work, right? Like being ambitious, but still being like not wanting to like step on your competition, right? So that's very, very important. So with those added, the fact that Sun's in the 2nd house, which is the house of Taurus, right? It kind of makes it very important for you to have a set of values that you can judge your own and others' lives by, right? And then you also have to really, so it's like, yeah, so it's really, really important to also, like, I think the 2nd house is like, obviously it's a little bit like about money too. Money typically tends to matter. Venus and Taurus, Taurus likes, it likes money. It likes the senses. It doesn't make it someone materialistic, but it could actually make them like not like that at all. It can make them just like love nature, but like usually a lot of times, like, Taurus likes luxury, right? Likes that kind of stuff. So 2nd house has to do with that. But yeah, it's important to ensure you don't become too critical when like you or others like don't live up to these expectations. And that's really, really important. And it kind of when there's lots of Earth in a chart, there can definitely be lots of like, even if there's no Virgo like inner planets, there can still be that perfectionism, that self-criticism can come up a lot. And yeah, so it's important, like people that have 2nd house energy, they really spend a lot of time like trying to build themselves up in their career, and they feel secure like through that. And the challenge is to value yourself no matter what your money situation is, your external situation is, right? So sometimes people with this put too much in there. And yeah, I said, I don't really go too far into like the sun sign, but like, how Gemini also is very friend-based, very communicative. So that would be very important too, to, all Geminis, they need it on some level, regardless of their moon or their rising or whatever, to feel like they have people around them, and that especially with the Mars there, which has like, romantic implications, to feel like there's like intellectual connections between them and the people they have closest. So yeah, that's kind of like, as I continue to define like this Gemini side, we'll see how you can kind of imagine how it plays out with the Capricorn. But basically, like, Mercury in Gemini, that's just like a very, very strong placement for intelligence. I mean, it's in dignity position in Gemini. So it makes someone love conversation, information, typically a fast talker, someone that can really take in lots of information at once. And yeah, like they just love to learn, love to communicate, and they can see lots of different perspectives too. And that's like, because it's like the twins, right? Gemini twins. And you know, to have it in the second house, once again, you know, when you think of it like as a house of money, it can make one have lots of very ingenious money making ideas, very like entrepreneurial spirits. There can be an ability to earn money through how like distributing information, and one can really value quick thinking and intelligence in themselves and in other people, right? But yeah, Mercury typically doesn't move too far from the sun. A lot of the times it's in the same sign. So then Mars is there too. Mars and Gemini, as I said before, really liking to initiate and spread ideas, spread information. It is an assertive position, but there can be sometimes where like it's someone who like I said before, they can really they like Mars is like your inner animal instinct, right? It's like your leftover animal instinct, your assertiveness function. So Mars and Gemini, they like to really go towards what they want, right? They like to go towards what they want. And if it's in the second house, you know, that make an entrepreneurial person. So if Gemini has to do with our curiosities and the things that kind of make us different and this and that and third, you could see how Mars and Gemini people in the second house, you know, they might want to switch up their careers once in a while. You know, there might be exactly like to your message, right? They might like this is what I'm talking about is like this one part of your chart that could just do the same thing its whole life, but then this other Gemini part, it likes to experience things differently. It wonders, you know, like what would it be like to do this, or what would it be like to do that? Have I outstayed my, you know, my welcome, or like have I done everything I need to do in this domain? Those types of questions get asked. And the Capricorn moon part's like, you know, no, stay. Like, you know, if this is good, if this is you know, like why change if you have something good going on? And then the moon in the ninth house is like, yeah, and especially if whatever, you know, we're doing is helping us, whatever your emotional life is bringing you is helping you have a higher understanding of universal truth and understanding of like your place, you know, like exactly what this reading is doing, right? Like helping you understand like your place in the cosmos, understanding your place in life, understanding higher philosophy. That's also super important to you in anything career related. But when we really look at career, we look at the midheaven, right? And I haven't even got into the South Node conjunct Neptune. That's interesting. But the midheaven in the 10th house in Uranus, and I'll flash the chart back again. So Uranus in the 5th, so this is like makes total sense that you'd be an artist, because you know your midheaven in Aquarius would make it typically so you don't want to do something just to do it. You want to be, you know, in your career, in your larger, I guess you could say social life, like your larger, like dharma, I guess is a better word for it. External life, the life that other people see, public life. You would want there to be a level of like, one, humanitarianism, like, but two, and also, you know, it's very like, it's very, very like, it can be a little bit eccentric, but you know, the ruling planet of it basically the whole point is it's very independent, it's very individualistic. So you would never want to do something like a Capricorn moon might be the kind of person that would like get like a corporate job if it's just only Capricorn in their chart. But it's like, that part of your chart, with the ruling planet of your midheaven being in the fifth, but being Uranus conjunct Pluto, it makes perfect sense that you'd be an artist, and that your art would take on a, there might be like a little bit of like that interchange between your art might be like this conduit for, you're born in 66, same year as my dad. So your art might be this real like conduit, like this real representation of the energy of that year, of that time. So that'd be interesting to kind of go back and like look at history and kind of see how the zeitgeist was, and then kind of compare your art to it, because at that time there was a Uranus Pluto conjunction, so your art would really be representative of those two archetypes coming together, which when those two come together, Pluto is a destructive force that, the ego struggles, the shadow work, right, can be very scorpionic. Uranus is the great liberator. It can be very humanitarian, very ingenious, very thought-provoking, very humanitarian, very beat to the beat of my own drum type energy. So those energies would probably come out in your art, and they'd probably also come out in your career. And then, the Capricorn moon, which comes out in everything, would say, okay, like, are my needs, like, am I feeling secure in terms of like, in terms of basically, is the career giving me that honor, that feeling of like, this is really the only thing I'm meant to be doing? But then you have to watch out for what I said before, for the tendency of like the person with lots of earth to overthink things, and that, that whole thing with the parts work, right, with the Gemini, and kind of, like if you were ever, for example, to do like the astrological based therapy with me, I would really like try to understand these two parts, right, and try to give them both voices, and give them both, try to like figure out how can life work, how does life work best when they both are being heard, and because a lot of times when people have like a square to between their sun and the moon, or an opposition, or a quincunx like you, it typically the parents are like either divorced, or there's like not a great relationship between them. But it also creates that same energy within ourselves. So there's like these two parts that just like don't really get along, and there's this real, there can be some difficulty. So yeah, so besides that, with relationships, we'll close this down. So with relationships, Venus and Taurus, the love language there is very, very sensual. It goes back with the moon sign, right? Like you're gonna really want reliability. That's gonna be a huge thing for you. But then it goes back, like the parts work also plays its role in relationships, because the Gemini part of you, right, especially the Mars, because Mars is very relationship based, is going to want someone who can have who they can have like an intellectual connection with, who they can have tons of different discussions, who's like really like their closest like best friend on that level. But then the Taurus Venus is very sensual. It's like they'll approach relationships in kind of a more slower, more steady way. They want someone that can prove that they're like solid and secure, loyal, and they really like enjoy sensuality. And typically it's very good for finances to have this type of energy. Yeah, like lots of like good financial energy. And we'll see what the stars say in a minute. But the same number calling me. Yep. I'll just pay my phone bill. So Yeah, Venus in the first house, it gives someone a strong ability to express beauty. Whether it's through their own personality, their own, who they are, or through their artwork. The fact that it trines your midheaven ruling planets and your fifth house, Uranus and Pluto, just means your ascendant does. Your Venus does. Yeah, it's 10 degrees off, but still whatever, it's close to it. It's an elemental trine. It's not quite like a trine in the sense that it's maybe a little bit out of orb, but basically there is a link, and it's going to play a huge part of your personality, this art, and just expressing beauty. Now, this is also very linked to your destiny too, because your North Node is in the first house in Taurus, right? And before I get into that, though, I want to just make sure I've covered everything I was talking about. Yeah, and also, okay, I want to talk. Yeah, so Moon opposite Jupiter. What that can create is, so Jupiter is like a very, very, very good planet, right? In the sense that even if there's squares and oppositions to, or like from the Moon, the Sun, and Jupiter, like it's square. My Sun, for example, it's not always bad. It can just like it can actually bring very good feelings of generosity, and especially when your Moon's in Capricorn. To have Jupiter aspecting it can be very good. But it can also mean you can really like expand. Basically, the way I look at these aspects of Jupiter, Sun, Moon, it's like there can be like over expansiveness. It can make one very, so this is actually, it can make you more optimistic, which sometimes Cap Moons like struggle with depression and and getting in like cheerful moods and stuff. But it can make one very warm and friendly. So in your chart, I think it'd probably be a good opposition, right? Just for that reason. But yeah, you can kind of make one over the top sometimes, and overly expansiveness, but it usually adds popularity. So I wouldn't see this one being difficult. But yeah, you have to watch out for also addictions with this one. So yeah. Also, like, it can make one very, very open. So this is why I see it being a good thing with your Cat Moon. It can make one very open with one's personality. So for instance, Capricorn Moons, they like to hold a lot of stuff in typically, and then that kind of ends up biting them in the ass, because everyone's like thinks that they're like this tough person that can handle anything, that would never have anything bad happen to them. But then, when they do have emotional crises, they just kind of suffer in silence. But like when a Cat Moon's suffering, you can be in the same house as them. They don't have to say anything, but you can feel it from like even in a mansion. Like you can feel it, that energy. So before getting into that, I want to speak also a little bit about the fact that there's very little water. You have the Jupiter in Cancer, which is very in third house, very good for writing, very good for speaking your mind. It makes one very like protective of their family. It gives a healing energy. It makes one an ability to have like an emotionally healing effect on people around it, and kind of like feel like that person is like part of their family, even if they're not. And also in the third house, it could be very, very fortunate for relationships with siblings. So I don't know if you have any siblings, but that could be very, very there could be lots of fortune in those relationships if you have siblings. And yeah, really, really good for writing, really, really good for communicating, especially when it has to do with your emotions, which can be great for the Cat Moon. Now, the fact that there's no fire in the chart can be worrisome. And wow, your Saturn is exactly my Sun. Interesting. Yeah, you were born like literally a month before my dad. That's crazy. But But yeah, lacking fire in the chart typically can make it so someone can have issues with self-starting, issues with finding that passion, finding that that fire that kind of keeps them going, and you know what I mean? That fire that just like fire, like people that have let's say a suitable amount of fire, they can have an idea, boom, all right, I like this, I'm starting this. When you lack fire, there can be difficulty with getting that flame started. But once you get it started, when you have that much earth, you have that staying power, right? There can sometimes be overthinking, like fire just goes. It's mantras like, we'll figure this, we'll do the thinking later, right? But when there's not that much fire, like my brother, perfect example again, because you guys have similar charts. He spent similar enough. It took him like 3 years or so to like decide to finally get a dog, you know? And just like the amount of times he would text me like, hey, like I'm thinking about doing it. And then like, I'm gonna do it. And then like 2 weeks later, like, no, I decided it's not the right time. And then he finally actually did it, which I was like amazed. And I thought he was never gonna do it. I just gave up hope. But that's kind of like the perfect example of lacking fire. But then also, what does he have? He has a Capricorn moon and Taurus rising like you and Taurus Venus like you. He just has a Cancer sun instead of a Gemini sun. He, you know, there's he has an ability to be quite grounded, I think. I don't think he really gets phased like when there's full moons and stuff. I mean, he was born on a full moon and he was born with Mercury retrograde, so I guess it's not really applicable. But like I don't think he. I think that like, yeah, there's periods of depression and definitely probably more hidden stuff, because Capricorn moon men typically don't talk about that stuff, and it's not really something that's talked about in my family. Anyways, the whole point is that there is a real groundedness to that energy, a real ability to kind of follow through on what once he does start something, he finishes it, as opposed to me, which is I'm a polar opposite to him. It's very difficult for me to start something and then years later still have that same passion and continue to really like go with it. So astrology has been like the first thing that I've really been able to do that with. And also another thing with like having too much fire that can be bad, and having a lot of earth, which can be good, is that sometimes fire can like promise too much and put too much on its plate. Like it just thinks it can do everything, right? And air is a little bit like that too. Earth is a lot more realist. It's a lot more realistic. It's a lot more logical based. So it's not gonna necessarily do that. It's gonna take its time to assess decisions, like you're probably doing with your career. It's not gonna be impulsive. It's gonna, you know, add everything up together. And then at the same time, you know, with all your other energies, because this is what's interesting about your chart, your south node, right, which rules your past life you, this is where things get really interesting, is in Scorpio with Neptune conjunct it. So when I see that, I've seen that in different like creative geniuses. I can't think of who. It was some like some artist who passed. I forget, was it some rapper? I think it was. I can't know when you. I don't think it's someone that you would know. Not that you would know rap, but I just don't think. Maybe it wasn't even a rapper. I can't even remember. Could have been. It was some very eccentric Aquarius like artist. I think I saw like multiple times this thing. Was it Kobe Bryant who had this too? But basically, like, it was someone. I see this in the charts of people who have like lots of earth in this lifetime. And they're very hard workers. They can be very perfectionist. They're very, very successful. But they also have this like magician kind of element to them, and it makes you think like, man, they don't have any Pisces, they don't have any Scorpio, they don't have any of like 8th, 12th house, but like they are so like, you know, like they have this thing. And then you look at their south node and it's in a water sign and it's conjunct Neptune. And you're like, there it is. They were a past life magician, past life mystic, right? So you're bringing in, excuse me, a lot of this maybe witch energy into this incarnation, and there's a karmic test, right? So then we look at the house it's in the first house, right? So North Node in the first house. That's about this karmic quest being about identity, because there can be like a past life imbalance between like relationships, like maybe being too much on like the side of like of relationships, which maybe has pushed you away from going within yourself and finding yourself. So there's like a need to leave behind past life habits of like fully submerging yourself into partners. And yeah, finding this balance between like giving, yourself, but also assertiveness and being your own person. And then with the North Node in Taurus, South Node in Scorpio, that axis is definitely very different, and it's about it's all about it's a karmic quest to overcome the distrust of change, and also in Taurus to develop, as you have, creative outlets for your intense emotions, and also avoid hitting out at loved ones, right? Because in a past lives you could have been plagued by these, right? Past life, South Node in Scorpio, there could have been traumatic endings. Let's see if there's any squares, positions. No, not really. No. So yeah, there could have been like a feeling of being cheated. So yeah, it's all about like learning the process of change, and from that can come like a newfound sense of peace, right? But trusting the surrender, because yeah, Scorpio South Node can really have hung on too much to powerful alliances in this context, seventh house relationships. So yeah, this life, it's not like don't have relationships, it's just like figuring it out on your own. But your descendant is also in Scorpio, ruled by Mars in the second house, which would further this energy of like being attracted to more assertive, people who have this Gemini energy, but also have this grounding energy, who have this little spark to them that can kind of keep up with that Gemini and curiosity, but also who are very, very stable and who you can count on, right? So then the 11th house has a lot going on there in Pisces, right? You got lots of healing to do with friends and groups in organizations, or whatever friend groups or organizations, larger, even like goals, right? Life goals. There's lots of healing to be done there. Chiron, Saturn, and Black and Lilith, all there in Pisces. A lot of karma will probably play out in these areas of life, and with Saturn 11th house, that's the classic energy of someone who typically will have difficulty wanting to like let so many friends in. They'll be more especially like they might have trouble like finding their real best friends until even if they're a Gemini, right? Until like the Saturn return, which is around like 29 and a half years old. And yeah, they can just be very like I don't even know the word, not judgmental, but very choosy, very picky when it comes to like the mantra is like, I'd rather have a few good friends than a lot of like okay friends. And then with Chiron there, that just means that there's in Pisces, that conjunct Saturn, that means that there has been pain experienced in groups, probably in this lifetime, maybe past lifetimes as well. And you may form groups, be friends with other people who are healers, teachers who are of that Chiron Piscean energy. And Chiron and Pisces, so we talk about the sign of Chiron, that I think has to do with like pain, like spiritual pain, and pain related to gaining your own sense of individuality and really feeling other people's pain, and yeah, like it can be really difficult to like detach from other people's energy, and from other people's negativity, and maybe taking it as your own can be very tricky. But yeah, Chiron and water, typically the issue or the pain is in the context of the energy work that needs to be done, and within that kind of spiritual sphere. And then Black Moon Lilith, so that's like, you know, about kind of the darker part of our personality that doesn't always have to come out, but basically it does, like when we're at our lowest. And I think of like Pisces Black Moon Lilith is like there can be sometimes like a victim mentality with that, but also there can be like this shying away from deeper connections with other people, which is very in line with the Capricorn moon. So also sometimes like Black Moon Lilith, which like I said, it doesn't always come out. It's not a planet. It's just a potential. It can mean that like within groups or within like these organizations that you're part of, like there can be, yeah, like just like watching out for like emotional manipulation, and using that in some type of way. And I want to pull out this article. One moment. So yeah, another thing with Pisces Black Moon Lilith is a fear of vulnerability. So that fear of being hurt that leads to emotional walls, obvious or subtle. On the other end of the spectrum, they can trust way too fast, which leads to a pain that reinforces the beliefs they need to protect themselves. Healing comes from relying on intuition and gut feeling to decide who to trust and accept that potential pain is a part of the equation. Interesting. Fear of vulnerability. So yeah, it kind of goes in line with what I was saying. And yeah, so besides that, yeah, Vertex and Sag in the 8th, you probably can really benefit, especially as a 9th house moon, from travel. I don't know if you're still where if that's played a big role in your life, but that can be very important. Experiencing different cultures, experiencing different worldviews is very important. And also in the 8th house, the vertex there. And also it would mean that in relationships you would come off as more of a that Sag energy would come out more in relationships, it's almost like your second ascendant. So you might be like the teacher, play like the role of like the teacher within your relationships, the person that kind of, I guess you could say, like inspires. So that's interesting. And yeah, you might really your doorway to higher awareness might really be through these very intense 8th housey experiences, which I wrote about yesterday, which have a lot to do with death, rebirth, transformation, which is that Sun square Pluto energy we talked about. So, all right. And then, to add to like the whole love thing, Juno rising in Taurus, it just goes, having Venus and Juno in the same house just says that basically, like when it comes to love, you're going to be someone who like Juno is like, it's like what you look for like in like a marriage partner, like at the highest level. And in Taurus, it's basically the same thing as the Venus, but times 2 or 3 or 4, whatever, that you're looking for that real rock of a person, that really solid, balanced individual that you can count on day after day to be the same person and not switch up. So let's see the aspects. Okay, so I didn't go over just two. So Mercury square Saturn, basically that can make it so your thought of like your thought processes when you're younger, processes, basically like the way that you voiced yourself may have been very, very strong, because Gemini is in its best. Mercury's doing its best in Gemini and Virgo. So it could have made some people like jealous, or there could have been some type of energy where you felt like your voice was shut down at an early age. And that totally goes also with the square with Chiron, which they're right next to each other, the Saturn and the Chiron. And that, throat chakra work is very important. Refining that authentic voice. And that kind of goes back to that Jupiter in the third house, right? Which I saw, like, I know, I don't know how much writing plays a role in your life, but like it could be very, very powerful for healing some of these energies. And also your sun moon midpoint, interesting, it falls right on your Saturn. So the merging of these two energies is right on Saturn. That just kind of like makes the Saturn energy, which is right on my natal sun and Mercury, extra important. And 28 Pisces is a very, very mystical part of the zodiac, right? It's right before 29 Pisces, which can be, any 29-degree planets can be a little bit hectic, but it's very much like it makes me think that the lifetime is really, really about closing some type of karmic cycle. And with a North Node where it is, it makes sense that it's about really going within. And yeah. And 1 second, let's see what else we got. So your moon is conjunct Vega. And then your sun, let's see, like just far enough from Miguel. Does that count? Barely, kind of. Okay, now let's see this. The Miguel sun, Vega moon. And okay, so let's see what it says about if there's any information here about the moon and Vega together. So yeah, here it talks about a tendency for occult and mysticism. Okay. And yeah, I don't see any other ones that are close enough. I guess I'll speak just because it's the sun, Rigel. That's another nice star. in the, okay, so 240, 1650. Yes, man. So yeah, it gives benevolence, honor, riches, happiness, glory, renown, inventive or mechanical ability. So it's one of the, it's a very favorable. High ambition, pride, love of power, grandeur of views. So yeah, this is one of the real wealth stars, for sure. And let's see if there's any information here. So Sun conjunct Rigel, bold, courageous, insolent, unruly temper, hasty actions, bloodshed, many enemies, great fortune, military success. And by the way, your sun is like, it's not so close. It's like just on the border, so it's not gonna like really be like so easily felt. But yeah, I guess you could say it says quick rise in life is promised on account of a strong inherent willpower, love of action, and a lucky hand in enterprise. A continuous battle to retain it and acquire position has to be waged. This fight at the same time stimulates an increase in vigor, even in spite of unhelpful aspects. Success in reaching the set aim can be secured by this powerful concentration. If, however, the native is not cautious or has an attack of weakness, failure and disappointments, a fall from success will follow. So, interesting stuff there. And yeah, let's just see if there's anything at 25 Aquarius. Let's open up this. Okay. So nothing there, but you have fixed star Menkar rising. Okay, but is it close enough? Yeah, it's not giving me enough information. I'm still waiting for this book to arrive. That has all the important fixed stars, but has yet to arrive. So yeah, that's essentially it. I hope you enjoyed. Let's let me know when you are ready to link up. My eyes look red. You slept well though. Here's this cat going crazy. Oh my god. So yeah, hope you enjoyed, and we'll be in contact. And thank you for being patient. Very complex chart, very interesting, and lots to talk about in the follow-up. So, and yeah, we've already scheduled that. So I will talk to you next Wednesday. It's written down whenever it is. So talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Ciao.